Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
What if the royal love story we thought we knew was hiding dark secrets? A shocking discovery has surfaced. Queen Camilla's private diary, rumored to contain explosive details about King Charles. From secret scandals to untold truths about their controversial romance. This diary could change everything we know about the British monarchy. What terrifying revelations could it hold?
Did you find it harrowing?
I did find it, and I think what made it so readable was your writing, your prose, your descriptions of nature.
Buckle up, because this royal drama is about to get even more scandalous. Stay tuned for the jaw-dropping details. Charles and Camilla first meet, 1970. It was the summer of 1970 when Prince Charles, the future King of England, met Camilla Shand for the very first time. The encounter happened at a polo match in Windsor Great Park, a setting that couldn't have been more fitting for a royal romance to begin. The air was filled with excitement, horses galloping, and laughter echoing across the field. Among the crowd stood Camilla, a confident and witty young woman who would soon capture the attention of the young prince. As the story goes, their meeting wasn't just casual, it was electric. Charles was immediately drawn to Camilla's charm and humor. Unlike many others in royal circles, Camilla didn't treat Charles as just a prince. She spoke to him like a regular person, and her down-to-earth personality made her stand out. She reportedly broke the ice with a cheeky joke that caught Charles off guard. Camilla reminded him that their great-grandmothers had both been mistresses to the same king. Her boldness left Charles both amused and intrigued, and the two hit it off instantly. Camilla, who was 23 at the time, wasn't from a royal family, but she came from an aristocratic background. She'd grown up around horses, countryside parties, and the kind of life that made her comfortable in the royal world. Charles, on the other hand, was just starting to step into his role as the Prince of Wales, balancing the weight of royal duties with his personal desires. Meeting Camilla felt like a breath of fresh air for him. Over the next few months, Charles and Camilla spent more time together, and their relationship began to blossom. They shared a love for the countryside, polo, and good conversation. Camilla had a way of making Charles feel at ease, something he deeply valued as the pressures of royal life surrounded him. Friends of the couple at the time said their chemistry was undeniable, but their love story hit its first obstacle not long after it began. Charles's royal duties called him away to serve in the Royal Navy, and their relationship was put on hold. While Charles was away, Camilla rekindled her romance with Andrew Parker Bowles, whom she would later marry. Though their love story didn't take off at the time, that first meeting in 1970 set the stage for decades of connection, heartbreak, and eventual reconciliation. It was the beginning of a royal relationship that would go on to shape history. Camilla marries Andrew Parker Bowles, 1973. The year was 1973, and the British social scene was buzzing with excitement. Camilla Shand, a young woman with a sharp wit and a warm personality, was set to marry Andrew Parker Bowles, a handsome and charming officer in the British Army. Their wedding was the talk of the town, and it became one of the most glamorous social events of the year. But behind the smiles and celebration, there was an untold story of love, heartbreak, and what might have been. Camilla and Andrew had been in an on-again, off-again relationship for several years. Andrew, who was known for his good looks and charisma, had many admirers, and their relationship wasn't always smooth. Despite the ups and downs, Camilla seemed deeply taken with him. She was ready to settle down and start a family, and Andrew appeared to be the perfect match for her. However, what many didn't know at the time was that another man, Prince Charles, had already captured Camilla's heart just a few years earlier. Prince Charles and Camilla had met in 1970, and their connection was undeniable. They shared a bond that was rare and unique, but timing was not on their side. Charles's royal duties required him to join the Royal Navy, which meant he had to leave Camilla behind. In his absence, Camilla rekindled her romance with Andrew, and their relationship grew stronger. When Charles returned, it was too late. Camilla and Andrew's engagement had already been announced. On July 4, 1973, Camilla and Andrew tied the knot in a grand ceremony at the Guards' Chapel in London. The wedding was attended by high society, including members of the royal family. Camilla looked radiant in her white dress, smiling as she walked down the aisle. From the outside, it seemed like a perfect fairy tale. However, those close to Camilla knew that Charles was never far from her thoughts. Despite marrying Andrew, Camilla and Charles remained friends. They stayed in touch, and their bond remained strong even as they built separate lives. Camilla and Andrew went on to have 2 children, Tom and Laura, but their marriage was far from perfect. Charles and Camilla's affair resumes. The story of Prince Charles and Camilla Shand had always been complicated, but by the mid-1980s it took an explosive turn. Although Camilla had married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973, and Charles had tied the knot with Lady Diana Spencer in 1981, the connection between Charles and Camilla never truly disappeared. Behind the grand royal events and public appearances, their bond remained strong, and by 1986, their affair had quietly resumed. At this point, Charles and Diana's marriage was already struggling. What had started as a fairy tale union was now filled with tension, misunderstandings, and unhappiness. Diana was aware of Charles's lingering feelings for Camilla, which only added to the cracks in their relationship. Charles, feeling increasingly distant from Diana, found comfort in the arms of the woman he had always turned to, Camilla. Their rekindled affair wasn't something that happened overnight. It began subtly, with Charles and Camilla spending more time together at social events and private gatherings. Camilla, who was still married to Andrew Parker Bowles, was a source of emotional support for Charles. She understood the pressures of his royal life in a way that Diana, still young and inexperienced at the time, struggled to grasp. For Charles, Camilla was more than just an old flame. She was a confidant, a friend, and someone he could rely on. As their relationship deepened, rumors of their affair began to spread. Friends and aides close to the couple noticed their growing closeness, and whispers about their meetings started to reach the public. Diana herself confronted Charles about his relationship with Camilla. The affair caused a ripple effect of pain and scandal. Diana's emotional struggles became more apparent, and her marriage to Charles continued to unravel. Meanwhile, Camilla faced her own challenges, as her relationship with Andrew Parker Bowles also began to break down. By the early 1990s, the affair was no longer a secret, and the media frenzy surrounding it became relentless. Looking back, the resumption of Charles and Camilla's affair in 1986 marked a turning point in the history of the British monarchy. It not only led to the eventual collapse of 2 marriages, but it also set the stage for decades of public and private drama. Their love, though controversial, would later endure and reshape the royal family in ways no one could have imagined. Charles marries Diana, 1981. It was July 29, 1981, when the world witnessed what seemed like the perfect fairy tale. Prince Charles, heir to the British throne, married Lady Diana Spencer in a grand ceremony that captured the hearts of millions. With over 750 million people watching on television worldwide, it was called the Wedding of the Century. The union between the shy 20-year-old Diana and the 32-year-old prince appeared magical. But beneath the surface, the story was far more complicated. The wedding itself was nothing short of spectacular. St. Paul's Cathedral, chosen for its larger capacity compared to Westminster Abbey, was packed with royals, dignitaries, and celebrities. Diana arrived in a glass carriage, wearing a stunning ivory silk gown with a 25-foot train, designed by David and Elizabeth Emanuel. The sight of her stepping out of the carriage became one of the most iconic images in royal history. The young bride looked every bit the princess she was about to become, and the crowd erupted in cheers as she made her way down the aisle. Charles, dressed in his naval uniform, waited at the altar, appearing calm and composed. The couple exchanged vows, though there were small, telling signs of nerves. Diana famously mixed up Charles's name during the ceremony, calling him Philip Charles Arthur George, instead of Charles Philip Arthur George. It was a minor mistake, but it hinted at the underlying stress of the day. From the outside, everything seemed perfect. The streets of London were lined with thousands of well-wishers waving flags, and the reception was a grand affair. The couple's kiss on the balcony of Buckingham Palace became a defining moment, replayed countless times in the media, Diana, with her natural charm and beauty, quickly won over the public, earning her title as the People's Princess. However, while the world celebrated, the marriage itself was built on shaky ground. Charles and Diana had only met 12 times before getting engaged. Their relationship lacked a deep emotional connection, and Charles's lingering feelings for his former flame, Camilla Parker Bowles, cast a shadow over their union. Diana, though smitten with Charles, would later reveal how lonely and isolated she felt. Diana confronts Camilla about the affair. By the late 1980s, Princess Diana could no longer ignore the growing distance between her and Prince Charles. Whispers of an ongoing secret between Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles had turned into louder rumors. Though Diana had always sensed that Charles's heart belonged to someone else, she decided to face the situation head-on. In 1989, she gathered the courage to confront Camilla at a birthday party, an event that would become legendary in royal history. Many well-known figures had gathered for a celebration in London, unaware that the evening would take a dramatic turn. The party was held for Camilla's sister, but the happy occasion had a tense undertone. Diana, feeling increasingly isolated and hurt, chose this moment to speak directly to the woman she believed was threatening her marriage. It was a small gathering, which made it easier for Diana to corner Camilla in a quiet corner, away from the main party. Diana approached Camilla with determination, her heart pounding. Despite her nerves, she spoke calmly, but firmly. She famously said, "I know what's going on. Don't treat me like I'm stupid." People who later heard about this confrontation often wondered how Camilla reacted to being challenged by the Princess of Wales. According to Diana's own accounts, Camilla tried to maintain her composure, but the tension in the air was undeniable. The conversation that followed was brief but powerful. Diana made it clear she wanted no secrets in her marriage, and that she deserved honesty from both Charles and Camilla. In some reports, Camilla replied that Diana had everything she could want: fame, beauty, and 2 beautiful sons. Diana, however, saw these words as dismissive and hurtful, feeling that Camilla was undermining her emotional needs. This confrontation was a key moment in Diana's life. Though she didn't end the affair that very night, she took a brave step by standing up for herself and her children. The media would later learn of this face-to-face meeting, adding more fuel to the already intense coverage of the royal marriage. For Diana, it was a moment of releasing pent-up anger and sadness. In the years that followed, the tension between Diana, Charles, and Camilla grew stronger, eventually leading to tabloid headlines around the world. Yet, this single evening at a birthday party remained a turning point. Diana's confrontation showed her willingness to fight for her dignity, even if it meant challenging the very traditions and expectations that had long defined royal life. Charles and Diana live separate lives, 1986. Charles and Diana's marriage started like a fairy tale, but by 1986, the cracks were impossible to ignore. Instead of sharing a warm and loving bond, the Prince and Princess of Wales seemed more like strangers under the same roof. Friends, staff, and even the public noticed that the couple was drifting apart. The magic of their 1981 wedding was gone, replaced by long periods of living separate lives both in and out of the palace. At the time, Diana was a global icon. Her warmth and compassion shone during royal events, charity visits, and public engagements. People adored her for her natural charm and stylish outfits. However, behind the scenes, she felt lonely and misunderstood. Charles, meanwhile, continued his royal duties and focused on his private interests, like polo and gardening. He spent more time in the countryside, enjoying peaceful retreats and the company of close friends. Their busy schedules offered an easy cover for how little time they actually spent together. Though both tried to keep up appearances for the sake of tradition and their roles, tensions were growing. Rumors about Diana's unhappiness and Charles's connection with Camilla Parker Bowles only added more strain. Diana's heartfelt attempts to find emotional support from Charles often went unanswered, and Charles, feeling pressured by royal expectations, withdrew even further. As a result, the two formed separate routines, rarely sharing intimate moments or genuine conversations. Even at public events, keen observers could sense the distance between them.
We have reports from Paris that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident and that her partner, Dodi Fayed, has also been killed.
For years, people have wondered if there was more to Princess Diana's death than what we were told. Many believe it wasn't just a simple accident, that powerful people might have been involved, and that the truth was hidden from the world. Now, Joe Rogan has revealed something shocking. A list of names connected to Diana's tragic death. These are people who were never supposed to be linked to what happened that night. Who are they? Why was their involvement kept secret? And if this list is real, what does it mean for everything we thought we knew? The truth may finally be coming to light, and it's more chilling than anyone could have imagined. What did Joe Rogan actually say? All right, let's start with the moment that caught everyone off guard. Joe Rogan, sitting there on his podcast, just casually dropped a bomb. In his usual laid-back way, he leaned back, laughed a little, and then said something that made everyone stop scrolling. There's a list out there, man. Names of politicians, intelligence officers, even royalty, all with ties to that car crash. He wasn't joking. You know how sometimes Joe goes off on those wild tangents? This didn't feel like that. He sounded serious, curious, but serious. You could hear it in his voice. He wasn't trying to be dramatic, but it was clear he had heard something big. Now, if you've followed Joe for a while, you know he talks about conspiracies a lot. Aliens, secret societies, cover-ups, you name it. But this felt different. There was something in his tone, like even he wasn't sure if he should be talking about it. He didn't sound like he was just repeating a random internet rumor. It sounded like someone told him, someone on the inside. And guess what? He wasn't alone in this conversation. Sitting across from him was one of his more serious guests. Not a comedian, not a random dude with a theory, but a guy with real connections, a former intelligence officer. You could tell this man had seen some stuff. He chose his words carefully, like he knew too much, but was still holding back. Joe asked him, half joking but half dead serious, "Are you telling me there's actually a list? Like, an actual list of people involved in Princess Diana's death?" The guest paused, smiled just a little, and then said, "Let's just say, if you dig deep enough, you'll find names you never expected." And man, that right there gave me chills. Because it wasn't a yes, and it wasn't a no. It was like a warning. A hint that there's way more to this story than we've ever been told. Now, Joe didn't read the list or give out names right there, but he did say that what he heard was shocking. Politicians, intelligence agents, royalty, people with power, real power. And Joe kept circling back to the same thing. Why would all these powerful people need Diana out of the way? And that's where the rabbit hole really starts. Who's allegedly on the list? Now let's talk about the most important part, the list itself. If this list really exists, who the hell is on it? Because this isn't just some random hit job. This was the death of one of the most loved women in the world. MI6 operatives. First up, the MI6. If you don't know, MI6 is basically Britain's version of the CIA. These are the people who operate in the shadows. According to the theory, they were watching Diana. Hard. She was getting way too popular. Her humanitarian work, her relationship with Dodi, her influence, it made her a threat to the people in power. Some say that MI6 had been following Diana for months. There are even claims they used a light flash tactic that night. Basically, they blind the driver with a super bright light, causing him to crash. It sounds crazy, right? But the scary part is, this is an actual tactic used in espionage. Royal family connections. Now here's where things get even darker. The royal family. Yup, you heard that right. There have always been rumors that certain members of the royal family were not exactly fans of Diana. Prince Philip in particular gets mentioned a lot. Some people say he openly disliked her. And you know what's crazy? Diana herself once said, "They're going to kill me." She told her lawyer, her butler, even wrote it down in a letter. She was scared. She felt like someone was out to get her. And the theory is, maybe she was right. British politicians. Next, we've got some big names from British politics. According to the story Joe heard, Some powerful politicians were terrified of Diana's growing influence. She was speaking out on issues most people were too scared to touch. Landmines, poverty, AIDS. She was shining a light on stuff people wanted to keep hidden. And then there's the business side. Diana was going after the landmine industry. And that, my friends, is big money. You think the politicians funding those arms deals wanted her ruining their business? Not a chance. French intelligence and police. Then, there's the French side of things. After all, the crash happened. In Paris, right? So where were the French police that night? Why were so many cameras in that tunnel turned off? Doesn't that seem odd? Some people think the French intelligence was in on it too. Maybe they didn't plan it, but they sure didn't stop it. Maybe they helped cover it up. There's just too much that doesn't add up. Too many missing pieces. Media moguls and paparazzi. And of course, we can't forget the paparazzi. Those guys were all over Diana every single day. But the question is, who was paying them? Who really financed that crazy chase through the streets of Paris? It wasn't just about getting a photo. Some say the media was being used as a weapon. Keep the pressure on. Keep chasing. And eventually, something's gonna give. Dodi Fayed's enemies. Finally, we've got Dodi Fayed's side. His father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, has been screaming for years that this was a plot. A racist plot. He believed the British establishment didn't want Diana marrying a Muslim. Think about it. Diana, the mother of the future king, having a baby with Dodi Fayed, that would change everything. It would shake the royal family to its core, and some people would do anything to stop that. Evidence supporting the conspiracies. Now you're probably wondering, what's the proof? What makes people believe all this? Well, buckle up, because once you hear the facts, it's hard to unsee them. First off, Diana wasn't wearing a seatbelt. That's what they tell us. But here's the thing. Diana always wore her seatbelt. Everyone close to her said that. So why wasn't she wearing it that night? Did someone tamper with the car? Or was there another reason? Then there's the CCTV footage. Guess what? Almost every camera in that tunnel was switched off or not working that night. Out of all nights, it just happens to be the night Diana dies. What are the odds of that? And then there's that mysterious white Fiat Uno. Witnesses saw it speeding away from the crash, but it was never found. Never. It just vanished. Some say it was part of the plan, a way to force the car off the road, but no one ever tracked it down. Let's talk about Henri Paul, the driver. The official report says he was drunk, but later tests showed his blood alcohol level didn't match the way he was acting just minutes before the crash. He wasn't stumbling, he wasn't slurring. Something doesn't add up there. And here's the part that still gives me goosebumps. Diana knew something was going to happen. She literally wrote it down. They are planning an accident in my car. She felt it. She knew. And no one listened. There have been books, documentaries, even official investigations like Operation Paget. They've looked at all of this, but somehow, the official story never really changes. They keep saying it was just a tragic accident. But was it? And that brings us back to Joe Rogan. Where did he hear this? Did someone pass him this information? A whistleblower maybe? Or is he just connecting the dots like so many of us do? Either way, when someone like Joe Rogan talks about it, people listen. And honestly, after hearing all this, it's hard not to wonder, what if that list really does exist? What if it's sitting in a safe somewhere, with names that would shock the world? Why would these people want Diana gone? So, the big question, why? Why would all these powerful people want Diana dead? The answer is simple. Power. Control. Diana was loved by millions. She was bigger than the royal family itself. Everywhere she went, cameras followed. She had a voice, and she used it. And not everyone liked what she had to say. Her campaign against landmines threatened billion-dollar deals. Her relationship with Dodi threatened royal traditions. And let's be honest, she was unpredictable. They couldn't control her. And people in power, they hate what they can't control. And maybe, just maybe, someone decided it was easier to make sure she was gone. Now, I don't know about you, But hearing all this makes me wonder, what else don't we know? If this list is real, how long before it finally comes out? How many secrets are still buried with Diana? And here's the scariest part. If they could do this to her, the most famous woman on the planet, what else are they hiding from us? The information in this list raises more questions than answers. If these names were kept in the dark for so long, what else has been hidden? The truth about Diana's death might be far more complicated than we ever knew. There's still so much to uncover, and this story is far from over. If you found this video interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the truth will ever fully come out? Stay tuned for more updates, and thanks for watching.
You didn't believe she was dead?
For a long time. I just refused to accept that she was gone.
For decades, the world believed they knew the truth about Princess Diana's tragic death. A terrible car accident in Paris, caused by a drunk driver and pursuing paparazzi. The people's princess, taken too soon in a senseless tragedy. But now, a shocking revelation has turned that narrative upside down, leaving the British royal family and the entire world reeling. What could possibly be more devastating than the original tragedy? The truth behind what really happened that fateful night in Paris is more unimaginable than anyone could have suspected. The shocking revelation. On a rainy Tuesday morning in London, crowds gathered outside the Old Bailey, Britain's central criminal court, as rumors swirled about a secret trial that had been conducted behind closed doors. Security was unprecedented, with armed officers creating a perimeter around the building and all electronic devices banned from the proceedings. When the Lord Chief Justice emerged to address the waiting press, his face was ashen. "Today, I must deliver news of such gravity that it will forever alter our understanding of recent British history," he began, his voice wavering slightly. Following a trial conducted with the highest security protocols, evidence has been presented that has led to the conviction of a member of the royal family in connection with the death of Diana, Princess of Wales. The crowd fell silent as the impossible words hung in the air. The justice continued. Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, has been found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder in the death of his mother. The sentence is life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The world stood still. How could this possibly be true? Diana's youngest son, who had been just 12 years old when she died, convicted of orchestrating her murder. It defied comprehension. The evidence uncovered. As details emerged in the following days, the story became even more bizarre and disturbing. The case had begun unraveling 3 years earlier, when a former MI6 agent, terminally ill with pancreatic cancer, had come forward with a deathbed confession. He claimed to have knowledge of a long-term operation that had been hidden from all but the highest levels of British intelligence. According to recently declassified documents, the agent had provided investigators with encrypted files that contained surveillance recordings, financial transactions, and communication logs dating back to 1997. Most disturbing were a series of coded messages allegedly sent from a young Harry to unknown operatives in Paris in the weeks before Diana's death. Forensic accountants had traced a series of complex financial transactions through offshore accounts that appeared to link the young prince to payments made to several individuals who were in Paris the night Diana died. Computer experts testified that the encryption used in these communications matched protocols that would have only been known to someone with access to royal security briefings. Perhaps most damning was newly enhanced security footage from the Ritz Hotel in Paris that appeared to show Harry, disguised and wearing a prosthetic facial feature, meeting with Henri Paul, the driver who would later crash the car carrying Diana and Dodi Fayed. Facial recognition experts testified with 99.7% certainty that despite the disguise, the individual was Harry. The impossible timeline. But how could a 12-year-old boy possibly have orchestrated such a complex plot? This question dominated headlines worldwide as royal experts and criminal psychologists attempted to make sense of the conviction. The prosecution's case, portions of which were now being leaked to the press, presented a timeline that seemed impossible. They alleged that Harry, far from being the traumatized child the world had sympathized with, had been a calculating prodigy who harbored deep resentment toward his mother for her relationship with Dodi Fayed and her increasingly independent stance from the royal family. Psychologists brought in by the prosecution painted a picture of a disturbed child who, despite his youth, had access to resources and connections that most adults could never imagine. They claimed he had been diagnosed with a rare condition that accelerated cognitive development while dampening emotional and moral reasoning, essentially creating a child with the intellectual capabilities of an adult, but without fully developed empathy. The defense had vehemently rejected this characterization, bringing their own experts who testified that such a psychological profile was pure fiction, and that the prosecution's timeline was physically impossible. They pointed out that Harry had been at Balmoral Castle in Scotland with his father and brother when Diana died, a fact confirmed by numerous royal staff and security personnel. The royal family's response. As the details of the conviction became public, Buckingham Palace remained in lockdown. King Charles III, Harry's father, had reportedly collapsed upon hearing the verdict and was under medical supervision. Prince William, now heir to the throne, had cancelled all public appearances indefinitely. After 3 days of silence, the palace finally issued a brief statement. The royal family acknowledges the verdict delivered by the court. This is a time of profound shock and grief as we attempt to understand these disturbing allegations. We ask for privacy as we process these events and determine appropriate next steps. No further statements will be made at this time. The statement was notable for what it didn't say. There was no defense of Harry, no questioning of the verdict, no expression of support for the convicted prince. This omission led to immediate speculation that the royal family had prior knowledge of the investigation, or perhaps even believed in Harry's guilt. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, who had been in California with the couple's children during the secret trial, was reportedly under protection at an undisclosed location. Sources close to her claim she was utterly devastated and in complete disbelief, having had no knowledge of the trial until the verdict was announced. Public disbelief and conspiracy theories. The public reaction worldwide was one of stunned disbelief, followed quickly by skepticism. How could such a massive conspiracy have remained hidden for decades? How could a child have orchestrated such a complex plot? And why would Harry have wanted his beloved mother dead? Social media exploded with conspiracy theories, many suggesting that Harry was being framed, perhaps by elements within the royal family or British intelligence, who feared what might be revealed in his upcoming memoir. Others pointed to his recent estrangement from the royal family as potential motivation for a coordinated attack on his character and freedom. Supporters gathered outside Kensington Palace with signs reading "Free Harry" and "Truth for Diana." In the United States, where Harry had relocated in recent years, political figures called for international oversight of the case, questioning Britain's judicial process and the secrecy surrounding the trial. Prominent legal experts expressed grave concerns about the conviction. A secret trial, with evidence never subjected to public scrutiny, resulting in a verdict that defies logical timeline analysis. These are hallmarks of a judicial travesty, not justice, remarked one Harvard law professor. The confession that changed everything. Just as public opinion was coalescing around the belief that Harry had been framed, the case took another stunning turn. 1 week after the verdict was announced, Harry requested a television interview from his holding cell at an undisclosed maximum security facility. In a broadcast that would become the most watched television event in history, Harry appeared on screen looking haggard but composed. What followed was a 40-minute monologue that left viewers worldwide speechless. "The truth about my mother's death has been hidden for too long," he began. "While I maintain my innocence regarding the specific charges, there are aspects of that night that the world deserves to know." He then proceeded to outline a narrative so complex and disturbing that it challenged everything the public thought they knew about the royal family. He claimed that while he had not orchestrated his mother's death, he had discovered evidence years later suggesting involvement by other members of the royal family and British intelligence. According to Harry, his recent estrangement from royal duties and move to America had been motivated not by personal preference, but by his discovery of this evidence. "I couldn't continue to represent an institution that I believed was complicit in my mother's death," he stated. Most shocking was his assertion that he had been willing to accept conviction to protect his children. There are forces at work that have made it clear to me that my children would be in danger if I revealed what I know, he said, his voice breaking. This conviction, while based on fabricated evidence, serves their purpose of discrediting me while allowing me to protect those I love by maintaining certain secrets. He concluded with words that sent chills through viewers. I say goodbye to freedom, knowing that someday the full truth will emerge. Until then, I accept this sentence as the price for my children's safety. The aftermath and unanswered questions. In the days following Harry's televised statement, the case became even more convoluted. Legal experts questioned how a defendant who maintained his innocence could be convicted in a fair trial. Intelligence analysts debated whether Harry's claims about threats to his children were credible or a desperate attempt to rationalize a legitimate conviction. The royal family remained silent, neither confirming nor denying Harry's implications of their involvement in Diana's death. This silence only fueled further speculation, with public opinion increasingly turning against the monarchy as questions mounted. Parliament convened an emergency session to discuss the constitutional implications of a convicted murderer in the line of succession, though far down the list. Legal scholars debated whether the conviction could be challenged in international courts, given the extraordinary nature of the secret trial. Meanwhile, Harry was transferred to an undisclosed prison facility, reportedly under constant surveillance to prevent any possibility of self-harm. Visitors were strictly prohibited, with even his legal team having limited access. The evidence disappears. 3 months after Harry's conviction, another shocking development occurred. The Ministry of Justice announced that the evidence used to convict Harry had been stolen during a sophisticated breach of government security systems. All digital records, including the enhanced security footage from the Ritz Hotel and the financial transaction records, had been completely wiped from government servers. The physical evidence, including original documents provided by the MI6 whistleblower, had disappeared from a supposedly impenetrable evidence vault. With the evidence gone, legal experts suggested that Harry's conviction should be overturned or at least reconsidered. However, the Lord Chief Justice issued a statement indicating that the verdict would stand as the evidence had been duly considered by the court before its disappearance. This extraordinary series of events only deepened public skepticism about the case. If the evidence was compelling enough to convict a royal prince of matricide, how could it have been so poorly protected? Was the theft a convenient way to prevent further scrutiny of potentially fabricated evidence? A nation divided, a family destroyed. As months passed, Britain found itself deeply divided. Polls showed that approximately half the population believed Harry was innocent and had been framed, while others accepted his guilt but questioned the circumstances surrounding his confession. A smaller percentage believed in his complete guilt and felt justice had been served for Diana. The monarchy's popularity plummeted to historic lows. King Charles, already advanced in age, appeared increasingly frail in his rare public appearances. There were whispers in political circles about the viability of the monarchy itself, with Republican sentiment growing stronger than at any time in modern British history. Prince William, now effectively the face of the monarchy's future, found himself in an impossible position, unable to defend his brother without potentially implicating his family in Diana's death, yet viewed with suspicion by a public that wondered about his own knowledge of the truth. Meghan and the children remained in the United States under tight security. Sources reported that all communication with Harry was monitored, with their children unable to have private conversations with their father. The documentary that shook the world. 1 year after Harry's conviction, a documentary was released simultaneously in multiple countries to avoid British legal injunctions. Titled The Prince's Tragedy, it featured interviews with former royal security personnel, intelligence officers, and forensic experts who systematically dismantled the timeline of the prosecution's case. Most compelling was testimony from Harry's former protection officers, who provided irrefutable evidence that he had been continuously under their supervision at Balmoral during the critical periods when he was allegedly in Paris. They risked prosecution themselves by revealing classified duty logs and security protocols that had previously been withheld from the defense. The documentary also introduced a facial recognition expert who demonstrated that the technology used to identify Harry in the Paris footage had been manipulated. using the original algorithm rather than the modified version presented in court. The experts showed that the individual in the footage bore only a 23% similarity to Harry, far below the threshold for identification. Perhaps most damning was an interview with a former MI6 operations director who suggested that the entire case against Harry had been manufactured to prevent him from revealing what he had discovered about Diana's death. When a prince threatens to expose state secrets, conventional methods of silencing him are impossible, the intelligence veteran noted. Character assassination and false imprisonment become the only options. The final goodbye. 2 years into Harry's sentence, as legal challenges to his conviction gained momentum and public pressure for a retrial mounted, another shocking announcement came from the prison authorities. Prince Harry had been found dead in his cell, apparently by suicide. According to the brief official statement, he had left a note reading simply, "The truth dies with me. Keep them safe." No autopsy results were released, and his body was quickly cremated before independent examination could be arranged. Meghan released a statement questioning the suicide ruling and demanding an international investigation, but her voice was largely drowned out by the wave of memorials and retrospectives that followed Harry's death. The narrative quickly shifted from questions about his conviction to reflections on his troubled life. In a final twist that seemed to confirm the darkest suspicions, all pending legal challenges to Harry's conviction were administratively closed within days of his death. The judge who had been reviewing the appeal request recused himself without explanation and subsequently left the country. The legacy of doubt. Today, years after these extraordinary events, the truth about Princess Diana's death and her son's conviction remains obscured. The official record states that Harry was guilty of conspiring in his mother's murder and later took his own life in prison. But millions around the world remain convinced that this narrative conceals a far more disturbing reality. Annual vigils are held outside Buckingham Palace on the anniversary of both Diana's and Harry's deaths. Conspiracy theories continue to flourish, books and documentaries regularly revisit the case, and justice for Harry remains a rallying cry for those who believe in his innocence. The monarchy has never fully recovered from the scandal. While it continues to function, its mystique and public support have been permanently damaged. King Charles passed away not long after his son, with many attributing his decline to the stress of these events. William now reigns as a king forever shadowed by questions about his brother's fate and his own knowledge of the truth. Meghan and the children remain in America, where they live under assumed names, rarely seen in public. On the anniversary of Harry's death each year, an anonymous donor places lilies, Diana's favorite flower, on a bench in a London park with a card that reads simply, "The truth never dies. Only goodbye for now, not forever." For a public that once mourned a princess, then watched her sons grow up under the weight of that tragedy, the story's final chapter seems cruelly fitting. More questions than answers, more shadows than light, and a family destroyed by secrets that may never be fully revealed.